I'm a failure. I have more one-star reviews than most hosts have reviews. I've been kicked out of buildings, nearly gone out of business multiple times, and I've lost my best team members by being a jerk boss. Further, Airbnb has banned my listings, suspended my accounts. I've lost millions of dollars, having to lie and cheat through the darkest times of my Airbnb career. And still, here I am, 10 years later, asking you to trust me. As a terrible Airbnb host, I have learned the hardest lessons in the most brutal ways. Here are at least 5 of my greatest mistakes. That way you can learn from them so you don't lose millions of dollars in the process like me. Mistake number 1, check your hubris. When you're winning, you think you can do nothing wrong. Everything feels right, but you could just be doing a few things so right that they cover up all the other mistakes that you're making. For example, while I was at the peak of my hubris, I picked up properties in Philadelphia that I had no business picking up. They were ugly, run down, bad landlords in areas full of crime. And I did it without regard because we were in this post-COVID upswing and everything was just making money. I ultimately lost all of my properties in Philadelphia, some because they were doing terribly, some because I had to sue landlords, and the rest were because of crime and murder, literal murder. And because of this lesson, I recently had the opportunity to tell one of my students to not take a deal. This student was already overexposed. Too many listings going into winter season, short on cash. And to top it off, their listings had no real advantage against anybody else in the market. I told him the hard truth, which was that he was just experiencing fortunate timing. So save the cash and let's talk in the new year. Lo and behold, winter came and revenues dried up. And if he spent all of his money in August on new listings, he probably would have gone out of business, not being able to pay his rents in December or January. And he wouldn't be in business today. I've honestly made this mistake of overconfidence multiple times. I'm not proud of it. More to come in the video. Please like this video, by the way, since we're talking about the video. And number 2 is more about blind spots. This one is a lesson on oversupply. Another one of my students, Andrew, came to me about a month ago with an issue in his market. He has a new competitor on the beach of South Florida who has 500 units in this fancy condo hotel. Freshly designed, well-run, beautiful colors, and even worse, their design style was strategically chosen to put everybody else in the area out of business by exposing the monotony and the boringness of everyone else's listings. He was already trying to hash it out with his usual competition, stuck in the mud already, but now he's fearing for his life. But this overfunded condo made a critical mistake, the same one that I made maybe 3 years ago. 500 units of an identical style with these wood walls and the key lime green and the pink elements is too specific for a broad range of customers. And even if there's thousands of people traveling to this section of South Florida every week, not everybody wants pink and green and wood grain. Not everyone. So at one point you need to differentiate your supply. And if it's a new condo hotel, they could have done 3 or 4 designs, found which ones worked the best, and ratcheted up the ones that worked and reduced the ones that don't work so well. They should have split test first. Thankfully, I only lost $500,000 on a deal once trying to do something like this. I picked up 40 units in the same apartment complex. We didn't do enough research to really know that we should have had 40 units there in the first place. But even worse, we had 40 completely plain listings designed to compete on price in an area. They were uninteresting, lacked personality, and they all looked the same. We had about 5 or 7 of them booked at the same time max. Over 30 of them empty on average every single day, and by the time we closed up shop on that property, I lost about $500,000. We could have started the deal with 10 doors, 5 that were cheap and 5 that looked more luxury, 5 with flair and personality, and saw how they both went. And then did another 10 more on the one that we thought was winning and scaled up. Because of this terrible lesson, not only did I get to learn about game theory as it applies to color theory, choosing different design styles and core colors against competition to show up more in search, but I also developed market indicators that incorporate with my pricing strategy to let me know if any market I have too many listings or if I have room to grow. It is the bread and butter of my decision-making process when I choose to add more properties in a city or not. But mistake number 3 is also an expensive one, and you may have heard me use this phrase before: don't run out of cash. When COVID-19 hit, I had 103 properties, but by the end of that year, I was down to 65. What cost me those 40 listings was a combination of poor planning and poor negotiations. Philadelphia shut down after COVID-19 for a year, like an entire year. It was bad. And Texas carried our portfolio pretty much all the way. But during that year, I had ample opportunity to cut ties with properties and landlords that were hard-nosed or not serving the company. Instead, I kept them on life support using all the cash we were making in Texas, limping along, ultimately losing the properties anyway. mostly due to post-COVID panic and people losing their cool and then landlords trying to recuperate cash with insurance fraud, crazy stuff like that. If I had looked at the situation for what it was and accepted it outside of my ego and what I felt like I needed to do to constantly grow and hold all my properties because my YouTube career depended on it, or just maybe I didn't want to be a failure in front of my friends having to confess that we closed down 15 properties, which I had to close down anyway, I could have saved all that Texas cash and reinvested it into Texas. I fought like hell to stay alive during COVID, and you can see it on this YouTube channel. I did videos every single day of what I was trying to do with COVID, pricing strategies, outbound calls to fill my places up, restructuring my properties, redesigning them, tweaking the algorithm, all of it. I tried so hard, but it was wasted effort and wasted cash on properties where the writing was just on the wall, and I was blind. I was blind by my need to be successful. But that failure gave me two gifts. I learned more about revenue management in that 6 months than I did the entirety of my career up until that point. And now I'm willing to walk away from a dead deal and call it a dead deal. So if a student comes to me with a problem property, we have a process to try to fix it, find a way to get back to the top of the algorithm, update pricing strategies to actually meet the market, change design styles when we're caught in the white noise of Airbnb and we need to break away. But if nothing is going to work, we need to recognize that early and stop losing money there so we can make money somewhere else. And I give my students this lesson, that sometimes losing less is winning, and they should never forget it. If you have hard times as an Airbnb host and can't seem to place what's going wrong with your listing, let me look at it. Talk to my team about cracking Superhost. Join myself and my 6 other coaches where we teach you everything front to back on how to Airbnb. Even if you have 5 years of experience, I promise you there's always more to learn. And we have a community of over 1,000 successful hosts in 40 different countries in cracking Superhost. There's always perspective on how to break free and get to the top. I'll leave a link down below in the description. Talk to my team if it is for you. I'll see you in there. And number 4 is to continue to inspect what you expect. I was honestly the worst boss for years because I expected people just to understand why I did things. They did something with me, I thought they would internalize it and duplicate it without need for context. I believed that my team would run my business the same way I always did when I took 2 years off from the business. And yes, that was foolish. And no, I don't regret taking over 2 years off of this business, even though it probably cost me $10 million in growth opportunities and loss of efficiency and loss of some of my best team members. I think I really needed the context. I left, my team ran the company as they would, my chief operating officer used her skill set and her expertise to run it the best way that she could. And at the time, she probably knew operations better than anyone else in this industry, but she was imbalanced, focusing just on operations. She knew little of marketing, she knew enough about my pricing strategy to execute some of it, so our properties became well-run, soulless cash machines, leading to lower reviews, lower rates to get more bookings, worst guess, lower reviews, Airbnb algorithm changes and shuffle the deck, boom, we're not being shown on search anymore. Some of our listings even suspended or banned because of those bad reviews. By the time that I stepped back in to try to get things under control, my COO and I were locking horns on what the company should be doing or what was best for the business or why we were failing in the first place. She thought that I was completely out of touch by being gone for so long, and I did not understand what the company needed. I didn't respect all of her successes and recognize that she kept the business afloat with a partial system because I failed to give her everything. I focused only on her failures so we could get back on track and lose less money. For this reason, I lost her trust, and then I lost her leadership within the company. And so instead of being a team bouncing back together, I had to restructure for her planned absence. And her absence is still felt to this day within the company. And so naturally, one of my students was in a smaller but similar cycle. He came to me about problems with his housekeeping team. He did pick up the part of the program where we teach that you can hire housekeepers for like $18 an hour or less. But he missed the part where we warn that doing so requires you to completely change your business model to focus on high-touch relationships with those people getting paid lower dollars per hour. So naturally, because of my epic failures as a leader, I knew exactly where he was right away. So I asked him, when was the last time you had a 5-minute conversation with one of these housekeepers where the 5 minutes wasn't necessary to communicate something about the business? He only had stories of conversations where it took him time to explain the work, where he was talking about a task or talking about the schedule. He never asked about them, he never cared, he never built relationships, not once. He had no clue how many kids someone had, what sports they like to watch, favorite colors, political alignment, ambitions in life, hobbies, nothing. Getting him back on track was actually a project to get him to understand what he was missing. There's a critical difference between management and leadership, and when you're a small business, you have to do both. I now make it a point to teach every Airbnb host that I get any time with on how to be a leader and not just a business owner, on how being a leader is a daily practice, one that we can never be too busy for, by the way, and to overlook human connection is to sign a death sentence in your business. Even just one meeting or two a week can maintain control, communication, collaboration, and goodwill within your company. If you care about this one detail and heed my advice, you'll never have to wake up 2 years later to an unquenchable forest fire like I did. Number 5 is launch with discipline. Here's a hot take. People are lazy, and once they have something down at a satisfactory level, they won't change it. This especially applies to an Airbnb listing that is already getting bookings. I am lazy. This is me. I struggle so much with this. I don't like the idea of having to take a listing off the market for a few days and have downtime with zero revenue to make necessary changes so that way it improves and makes more money for the rest of the year. And further, having ADHD, I really only ever respond to things when they're already a 5-alarm fire and not some slow leak within the business. To not be like me, I would like to encourage you to make it a rule that when you set up your Airbnb property, you do not go live until it is truly done and ready. No cutting corners, no incomplete rooms, no ugly iPhone photos that you have up as placeholders until the photographer gets here, none of it. Because once your Airbnb property is live and making money, you won't want to go back and take the time to change it. Convincing my students to shut down a listing now for the sake of making a necessary change to save their future as an Airbnb host is as challenging as it is to convince myself to do the same thing. But the math is there. A year of bad income and bad reviews is avoidable. Plus, you're gonna have to make those changes anyway when Airbnb forces your hand because of those bad reviews. So don't limp through the year just to get beaten into submission by the Airbnb algorithm anyway. Lose just once. Please, not twice. So with these 5 lessons comes some huge tips, and I'm going to give them to you fast. Write these down, take them with you, and please share this video with a friend that's a host. I'm sure they would love to hear these stories. Quick tip number 1, stick and move. Get experimental and do it with an open mind and take notes right away and make changes when things are working or not working, like split testing rooms, new pricing strategies, adding amenities, trying to do my split strategy with the whole home on weekends and private rooms on weekdays in highly seasonal markets, trying boutique websites or OTAs. Try everything, but don't waste a lot of time when something isn't working. Check that box. Rapid positive changes to your business lead to new ideas that can lead to more positive changes. This iteration puts you in front of competition, like big time. Number 2, love your team, be hard on them, stay close. The best thing about being a small business owner is you're real, you're human. You can make mistakes, you can have a bad day. People can work shoulder to shoulder with you, and it's a romantic notion. Like, my boss is so cool, they clean toilets with me. Get in there. It's important because sometimes we don't have the systems to tell somebody that they're doing something incomplete or why they're doing something wrong. But when you're there with them, it all makes a lot of sense. It's a lot harder to do things at a distance if you're not such a master that you can teach kindergartners to do something. So if you cannot train a 5-year-old on how to be a housekeeper, try working with them once in a while. Again, continue to inspect what you expect. But when you're real with somebody, when you know that they have bad days, when you know their kids' names, when you know what their life was like before they worked with you, you can hold people accountable in a way no other boss can. You can build teams that are unshakable. It's awesome. So try to be more than just a boss. Be a friend in a way. It's better to be a friend and then have to dial it back when people take advantage than to be that absentee landlord corporate shill that people always quit because of and that they're never honest with. Take the risk, have a heart, be vulnerable. It'll pay dividends, I promise. Number 3, learn where you suck, parentheses, don't be a hammer. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, meaning that you try to solve every problem the same way. I come from sales. Maybe that's why I'm a YouTuber now too. Way cool, right? But I started my business in arbitrage, selling landlords on properties. But you've seen my videos. They're all about the algorithm, data, pricing strategy, design, other elements of the business. I very rarely do a video that has to do with Airbnb arbitrage. It's just the beginning. It's a small sliver. But for years, I thought my entire business orbited around me selling landlords, getting free rent, putting some furniture in there, and repeating and growing on free rent loops. It worked to scale the business, but it didn't work to run the business. I had to learn everything else and respect everything else. And for where I suck, I have to hire people who are good at those things. Just like Michael Jordan or LeBron James by themselves would have a hard time beating a college basketball team with 5 players on the court. One person, that's you, even a master of all things, can't do them all well enough to beat a team where everyone is specialized and good at what they do. You may suck at dealing with guests. You may not have enough patience to answer stupid questions, and that's okay. you can hire somebody who doesn't mind stupid questions. Or you may not be good at numbers or interior design, and that's okay. Quick tip number 4, it is better to make money on 10 properties than it is to lose money on 1,000. Stay Alfred, Lyric, Zeus, they are all examples of companies that got too big on bad ideas, good business model, but bad tech stuff. And they ended up losing so much money that even raising hundreds of millions of dollars could not keep them in business. Stay Alfred went out of business because they failed to raise like 18 million of a $30 million raise. They had 2,500 listings. They shut down and left everything behind, leaving these landlords stuck with furnished apartments. Many of us who have a lot of properties got them because we took over the bones of Stay Alfred or Lyric. Free furniture, an easy game to play. Tip number 5 is to actually listen to your customers, the nasty ones specifically. Instead of complaining that you're getting bad reviews, why don't you read them and find out what those bad reviews are about? Sure, we've all had that rare entitled guest that wants to complain about everything and make a show of it, maybe for a refund. But every host in the world has to deal with those. There's no point in complaining. It's a market force. We all have to deal with them. But when you have real reviews with real disappointments and real feedback, you should take that to the bank. Because if you change these things, you are that much closer to running a perfect business. And you're that much closer to putting everyone else out of business. Tip number 6, hot take, cheat to win. I've blurred the line of ethics in my business multiple times, but normally that blurred line of ethics is really just the public's lack of context to what's really going on and what's good or what's actually bad. A lot of people accuse arbitrage of being unethical because you're not supposed to sublet until you realize that is a private contractual agreement between the property owner and you, and they can allow you to sublet if they want to. In my willingness to go counterculture, I have pioneered the most controversial way to grow an Airbnb business and now have the biggest YouTube channel on how to run an Airbnb business, because I played along that line. And when COVID-19 hit and everything was hitting the fan, I renegotiated leases where I wasn't paying rent anymore. I didn't pay credit card companies because I wanted to make sure I didn't run out of cash. I pissed a lot of people off. This is unethical to not pay your creditors at a moment in time. But the biggest companies in the world do the same thing. And they expect us little guys to play by the rules? Hell no. I also have controversial means of getting reviews while also getting resolutions paid for. And this has been topic of debate on the internet, but it works and I get paid. I get the honest review and I get paid by the guest. And if the guest saw it coming, sure, they would try to hold the review as leverage. I just don't give them the opportunity. And yeah, the traveler, because they have a vested interest in not paying for stuff, absolutely would call that unethical. But in reality, the biggest businesses only care about when they're going to get caught and act according to that. No one else is playing by the rules, so get smart and play smart. Tip number 7, zip it. Shh, shut up. Stop over-explaining to your customers, to your employees. Stop giving your life story to Airbnb when you're trying to get paid for a resolution claim. Learn to say only what is necessary to get a result, like to win the dispute. And stop complaining to the world about your problems. No one cares. Everybody has their own problems. No one respects a weak business owner. So take this as an opportunity to practice discipline and self-control every single day. Let this be an area where everyone else makes mistakes. And remember, when you say something, there are no takebacks. It's out there. So please be careful and shut up. This might be my favorite tip. Number 8, guys, is play the role of the pawn. When I started my first business while I was homeless, I was selling teeth whitening kits. I actually did well enough for a while that one of the guys that I hired went to Louisiana, got an investor, and tried to start the same business inside of a mall. But his investor screwed up the whole business because he had business cards that said CEO on the business card. And that first impression of some shoddy teeth whitening stand with a guy claiming to be a CEO in a baggy suit, no one trusted that guy. So he won no business. But in my business, I was just the marketing rep, doing really great presentations on how the product worked, and everybody thought I was at the bottom of that business, only able to imagine that everything else above me was greater or more established than I was. So when a guest makes a request for an early check-in or a refund or something else that you don't want to say yes to, but you know they're gonna argue with you because you're the host and you said no, instead say, "Thank you for that request. Let me ask the owner and I'll be back with you shortly." They don't need to know that you're the owner. So yes, lie. It's not your fault, actually it is your fault, that you don't have a corporate structure where there's somebody between you and the guest. But other companies have that. Like the Marriott, they have that. No one's screaming at the CEO of Marriott because they can't get an early check-in. They know that they can't bark up that tree because the systems don't allow for it. People are manipulating you because they know that they can. So instead, build your systems in a way that protects yourself. And if you have to, for now, lie about not being the owner and say that you'll ask the owner, wait 90 seconds and tell them your answer. but make it look like you're just the messenger so the person knows that their pressure and manipulation doesn't fall directly on the decision maker. In sales, we have a saying, buyers are liars, and it's true. And they will manipulate you if they think that they have a shot. You don't see people on the phone haggling their premiums with United Healthcare. They wouldn't drop their rates even if a gun was to their head. Play the same game. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through to the end. I do have a lovely video about the Airbnb algorithm I want you to watch next. If you want to improve your listing, promise you'll like it. Thank you. As always, my friends, I will see you on the other side.